Excellent.
Good to go.
Okay, we are recording. Who is Craig indeed? So why don't we go ahead and just jump right in? Actually, I think we skipped Zersiax's introduction. So Zersiax, why don't you introduce yourself?
I can do that. I'm Zersiax in the game as a coder. I'm the sort of lead coder of Starmourn currently. I started in August and I've had a lot of fun since then, working on various things from combat to space to pretty much everything. Outside of this, I'm an accessibility consultant as well as the occasional web developer. Use a screen reader, so that's the thing. And apart from that, that's pretty much me, I would say.
Yeah, I've learned a lot about screen readers since you joined staff.
Yeah.
One second.
All right.
Yeah, that looks good, Damiel. So thank you both, Senzei and Zersiax, for being here today. We are going to go ahead and start with our first question. I think Jaden has a question. Jaden, would you like to ask that yourself, or should I ask it for you?
No, I can ask it if you want.
Go for it.
Okay. Would it be all right for you guys to put out some sort of general idea of a development map for the future so we know what to get excited about?
Yuk, would that be all right?
Yeah, actually, that's something that we're planning to do at the beginning of the year.
Okay, great. So when Ilios left, it was right in the middle of the ship revamp, whatever, work on that. Will there be a return to working on some of the ship fixes since that project was interrupted? Things like a ship arena, looking at comms, not dropping your entire payload of that's on your ship, things like that.
I'm going to give a sideways glance to Eukelade here. I would say that's definitely on the roadmap. I would not dare to say when it's on the roadmap, but it's definitely there, and it's definitely something I would want to invest significant time in, because I have seen that could definitely see some work, and I think we can absolutely make that better.
So I will say that while I am not part of the road mapping process, at least I have not seen anything about it. I kind of do bugs intermittently, so there's nothing specific that points me in one direction. So if there's a strong desire from players that a certain area get looked at or fixed, let me know and I can look into that. I don't know how many bugs are in that category in general. So if you say like ships are broken and there's like 50 bugs, you'll have to be more specific. But in general, if you have like hey, can this not happen? I can look at that specific issue as one of my priorities.
All right, that makes sense. I mean, we can, as players, kind of get together in one of the Discord channels and figure stuff out if that's the case. Do you guys have plans to implement like a fix to the junk dropping issue, which is crazy that it's still a thing, but
Which
like
issue?
like a junk pile dropping upon death instead of a GMCP overload of every single item.
Yeah, so the first thing I'm probably gonna do. I'm sorry for interrupting anyone. I don't know if Yuke or Zerx already had the thing for this, because I was asked about this when I started. And I checked the GMCP that Starmourn creates. We create extra packets for no reason. So usually you should get a GMCP packet saying that it's no longer in inventory and want adding it to the room. So you should get 2 per item.
Now recording.
Hey,
Oh,
he showed up.
well,
Oh, hi, Bandit.
But then the currently we send 4 messages, so we send twice as many. But I am gonna look at using the grouping system that you might have seen in some other games. That way you can have, you know, a larger pile consisting of 22 pieces of a specific kind of junk. Because yes, that I have been told that causes some pretty severe lag. So at least for me, that is in my list, and we made a spreadsheet for priority projects, and that's currently in there. So hopefully shortly that will be fixed.
Yeah, just to add to that, that is definitely on our radar. We want to get it fixed as soon as we can.
All
Should
right, thanks, guys.
To interrupt real quick,
Okay, I think.
am I good to kill the recording I'm doing?
One sec. Let me ask in chat because Oh, Bandis is here. Bandis, is that okay? Steve has been recording, but now Craig is here. It looks like.
someone would have to splice the recordings together probably, but yeah, apart from that, I don't see why you couldn't do that.
Right. My only concern is that we've already started recording, so like having 2 recordings is like a little strange.
I'll just record. Keep going.
Yeah. Why don't we go ahead and keep
Sounds
going?
good. Let's do that.
Bandis is driving, so he can't really talk. I don't know how he did this while he was driving.
Not sure if I want to know.
Please be safe, Bandits. So I think that was all of Jaden's questions. I think we can now move on. It is Flip's turn. Hello, Flip. Would you like me to ask your question?
Taking that as a yes, maybe.
That's probably good.
Flip Valeria would like to know, can we have updates on pharmaceuticals and also colonization, please? So I can answer that one. Pharmaceuticals is again on our priority projects spreadsheet. So we have our eye on it. It's not going to be tomorrow or anything, but I will hope like sometime in the first part of next year we can look at it. Colonization, that's going to take longer. Ilios leaving did not really do us any favors in that regard. We're probably going to have to look at pushing colonization back, you know, until a bunch of other things get handled.
Yeah, if I can add to that real quick, I think right now what we've been doing ever since I took over from Helios is I've been looking at what's broken and what's actually blocking people from playing the game properly, and that's what I've been mostly focusing on. So if I see something's unfair, I'll try to fix that first. If I see something's literally just making someone unable to play the way they want to play, then that gets looked at. And essentially that's what I've been doing over the last couple of months. And I've been taking class leads. I've been doing the space mission revamps where we had like made sure that not one person could just eat all the missions, things like that. So given we're still in sort of maintenance and all the fixing all the breakage mode, I would say something like colonization is definitely something I want to do. I just don't know exactly when, and yeah, it might be a bit before we get in such a state where that kind of project becomes feasible. So yeah, it's on our radar, but not entirely sure when yet.
Does that answer your questions, Fliplaria? I will take your silence as a yes. Okay, so next question. This is from Cass, I guess. Oh, wait, no, Cass did not have a question. Cass just DM'd me. Okay, so now I have no questions.
Oh, huh. Okay.
Well, it's probably still a statement that I should address to the programmers. I'm sorry for breaking a lot of things, but I will not stop.
We like you to break things. That's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
Some of our most entertaining times are when a bug comes up, and the first thing you can ask is, "How in the world did that happen?" Ooh, since we don't have any questions, I want to tell a short, fun story. So,
Okay. In the meantime, please DM me if you want to ask a question.
yes, definitely. Or,
Please
just
do.
poke us. So an example of how did that happen? So in Not Achea, there was a weird bug where people would randomly die, and it would claim that they had died by an Atavian, which wasn't in the game. And there was a log of the discussion between coders and one of the players involved because they had no idea how something that didn't physically exist was the cause of death. And there's a lot of discussion to try to find how to narrow down something that wasn't in the game being the source of a problem. So sometimes you have just great bugs that make absolutely no sense. And
Yeah, I've seen that even in Starmourn.
yeah, and those are great. Just Lusternia recently had a bug where if you called a beast, you might call like a wonder item, one of their artifacts. And if you dismissed your beast, your artifact would be dismissed and just go away. And I don't know how they managed that, but they had a changelog recently. They fixed that. So you never know what kind of weird bugs you get. You guys might be like, "How did this happen?" And we're laughing about it. Like, how did this happen?
I really like weird bugs as well. I think everybody kind of does. They're a great novelty. So, in the absence of you guys asking questions, like this is your chance to talk to the coders, guys. So, don't be shy. I will ask a question to both of you. What did you find the most challenging about getting into Starmourn's code when you first started working on this game?
Oh, I can start. What did I find the most challenging? Essentially, Starmourn is the first mud, as it were, that I've worked on. So a lot of the concepts that I was introduced to, I knew kind of vaguely from like knowing code, but I did not quite know how they were implemented in Starmourn. So my first couple of bug fixes and such, I was talking to another coder that has done a lot of work on this game, and we would constantly get into the same thing where I would mess up in the same way, and I'm probably it probably cost him a couple years of his life. Sorry about that, man. But yeah, just there was a couple of things that were just not clicking for me, and I understand them now, but there are some very interesting things that we distinguish between that sometimes can make it really hard to target the thing you actually want, rather than like something else entirely. Which, for example, has led to the influx of the polymorphic augmentation chips beating up people. That was an oopsie. That was a fun one.
Yeah, then it became a morphic augmentation fish
Yep.
later, which some of you probably have.
I have one.
One too. Sensei.
So I have some experience in coding, and the way Starmourn does things is a little different because of the fact that they wanted to build a framework that allowed you to actually fight with mobs on top of it. So where I'm used to like, here's a player object and here's the anything else object for like a character, there's like a middle layer to deal with both of them. So a lot of times I'll be like, why isn't this working? And then they'll be, well, you're not looking at a player, you're looking at a different item that isn't there. So it ends up being kind of weird to deal with. And I have spent a significant amount of time looking for functions that convert between the different types.
Yeah, I remember you getting stuck on that. That was fun because that was also something I got like initially confused about. So that was I saw you being me for like the first few weeks. It was
Yes,
amusing.
and for anyone with some programming background, essentially, players and mobs both inherit effectively an entity class. So I might have your entity number, I might have your player number, I might have a persona number, and I have to know which of those I'm dealing with because if I do it wrong, I affect unrelated people.
Or you just cause an untrapped. That's more common, but yeah.
All right, so we're having more questions posted in the chat.
Yay.
I'll go ahead and ask these out loud. All right, so question. Do you guys feel comfortable pulling back the curtain on some of the skill math numbers, or is that a no-no? That's from Jaden.
Generally, I would say that's a good question. I think I would say
No.
but that's mostly because I think that gives people who are here an unfair advantage. I will go into it with people when they ask, like when we're diagnosing why a skill is broken. I will look at the math, and if they are verifying what math they've already come up with, I will be like, okay, yeah, that's right, and it apparently needs to be shifted because there's a lot of math in some of these skills that either might be better handled or is more complicated than it needs to be, and that's making it hard for balance issues to be found. So I will essentially sometimes take someone by the arm and be like, okay, this is what we're doing, and you're saying that that's not working out number wise, and we might discuss it in that setting, but I wouldn't be comfortable being like, okay, well, this is a 50% reduction on that, like in a public forum like this one. I don't think that's a very good idea.
Just to because I don't make sure we're not misunderstanding what he's questioning, because I think other games have done this before. Just in case he's asking this, not meaning it that way, but like, what would you feel about putting formulas in the ABs specifically so people always know their information? Not necessarily a form like this, but something that every player would have access to.
That I don't know. I don't know what I think of that. Some games do that, some games don't do that, and I think if we have to do that, we have to do it for every single ability in the game. Which I don't know. I think that might give people who are really like math whiz a big advantage in combat. Maybe that this is not my forte though, so I might just be talking out my butt right now. But yeah, I don't know. It feels like that might not be something that Starmourn is doing, and I don't think any IRE game does that currently. So I don't know. It would feel very weird for me to do that in Starmourn.
I think there's a way that we could be a little more transparent, but it would take some discussion. It would take probably a lot of play testing just to make sure that like people aren't, you know, using these numbers to build themselves like crazy scripts to just play the game for them and things of that nature.
Right.
All right, so I think that answers that question from Jaden. I'm just kind of scrolling up because I think that somebody else asked a question. Oh yeah, Strunky Monkey asks, what language is Starmourn written in? And if it's proprietary, what is it closest to?
It is essentially C with some extra things added in and some things removed. It's essentially most close to C, I would say. And yes, that includes not having OO.
Yes, and there's some extra limits in there, like things you would expect. If just as a quick example, we don't support decimals, so if something has to be below a certain number, like there is no half second, it has to get measured in like centiseconds, because we can't use a decimal place. A decimal place just causes a round off error, or not round off error, but just cutting off the decimal portion.
Yep, and there's ways of handling that. Like there's ways of getting a decimal and then clamping it down to the closest equivalent if we need to do that. There's definitely things we can do that. But like when I say it's like C, we don't work with pointer arithmetic or anything of the sort. That doesn't happen. But yeah, it's syntax like it's very similar to C with the occasional little change that tripped me up in the beginning a lot. But yeah, it's most C, and yes, it is proprietary language based on the engine that the games are built on. Good question, though.
Just a reminder to everybody, please DM me your questions rather than post them in the chat because we're scrolling quite rapidly and your question might get missed. So it's not that I don't want you to post questions in chat, it's just that I want them to be answered. So if you don't want it to be missed, and you want to be sure to be asked, like, just go ahead and DM it to me. So we have more questions. Flip is asking more questions. I will ask them for her. She has some very important questions for the coders. Her first question is, what do you guys prefer, Star Trek or Star Wars?
I'm more of a Trekkie. I do like Star Wars, but Star Trek has more of a vibe with me.
Star Wars. I prefer the newer Star Trek movies over the newer Star Wars movies, but just as a general premise, while I like the whole science aspect of Trek, I prefer having a little bit of mysticism and things, a little bit of pseudoscience magic. So I'm a Star Wars person.
Search your feelings, Sensei.
That's crazy. Okay, so the second important question from Flippalaria is, which of you guys would win in a dance battle?
Definitely Sensei.
Yeah, I think my money's on Sensei as well.
Yeah, I'd say so.
No offense.
I'm not sure if we're setting low bars or they just have a lot of faith in my dancing abilities.
Yeah, like if I start dancing, things start breaking and stuff. It's not a good deal.
Yeah, I think Damiel has it right. Sensei does have a unfair amount of energy. It's hard to keep up with sometimes. Okay, so I think Steve has a question. You can go ahead, Steve.
Sure. To what extent are coders or are storytellers able to code? Or to put it another way, what kind of things can we expect them to be able to accomplish? And versus what kind of things do you all have to do for us?
I can take that one actually.
Sure.
So basically, how it works is any storyteller who shows interest in coding, which is currently only Damiel, I'm open to allowing them to try. So if you're a storyteller and you've gotten really good at our scripting language and you feel like you want to advance to the next level of interfacing with the game in that way, then by all means you can just ask for code access and I'll probably give it to you. Currently, neither Damiel or I are very strong coders. We both do a bit, but the real heavy lifting is done by Florian and Zersiax and Senzei.
Just gonna add on to that just a little bit. Normally, what storytellers are able to do is what you call descripting language, which is essentially what governs what objects do, what quests do, and what mobs do. So that's usually if there's a problem with a quest or a problem with a mob or some item that doesn't quite work the way it should, then that's generally a storyteller thing you can ask. If it's a mechanic or if it's usually an artifact or a collectible or something of that sense, that might very well be something that the coders have to do. So that's generally where the divide lies as well.
Yep, that's pretty accurate.
Yep. So if it's very common to know prog and not know code, but I'm one of the weird people. I know code but not prog, so I still ask Damiel and Sao to do all my work for me.
So for people who aren't clear, prog is what we call our scripting language. It's short for program. So that is it for my question queue. If anybody has another one, just raise your hands. I will call on you.
Raise your hand. Wow.
Quark has a question. Would you like to ask that, Quark, or should I ask it for you? I will ask it for you. So Quark asks, what are some areas of Starmourn that, if you had the time and opportunity, you'd really want to work on and end up as a polished product? Like, I guess your dream project.
Oh, uh, that's a difficult one. Um, I have a big love for hacking. I really want to expand the hacking things when I get a chance. Make that way more dynamic and just add a whole bunch of things to that. So if I ever get like a time machine that lets me do like 15 days in one day, I might work on that. But I also really want to work on space and make that. That's why I was like smiling when the ship question came up earlier. Like that is definitely something I want to work on as well, and not just to make it accessible because that's also something I want to do. We have some really cool initiatives going on for that already, like from my end, and some players have been working on making this more doable. But that's also something I want to work on. But I think we can do a lot more with space as well, and I think there's a lot we can do there to make even that more dynamic. Which is, of course, that is Starmourn's main thing that sets it apart from a lot of other games. We have this space system that we can pretty much do anything we want with. We're just limited by our imagination. So I would say that's my top two.
For me, I'm more of a combat heavy person. I haven't done hacking yet. I will give that a shot at some point. But I want to make an active effort to keep combat rolling. Zersiax's been doing a great job with class leads and making sure things are caught up. But I want to see that become a bit more organized too. Like right now, you kind of have to find a reason potentially to get a fight. I'd like to see like a combat, a more fully fleshed out combat ranking system, potentially that also allows groups, so 2v2, 3v3. So you could kind of have a more of a rank system, something to pursue. And kind of my number two project linking off that is I want to make sure that there is always something fresh and developed. So eventually I'd like to have mobs that can take you down. Like if you get in a fight with them, they will actually use the insta of their class. If you get in a fight with a mob who happens to be a fury, he's probably going to go ahead and kill you with either damage or the insta, depending on what you're trying to cure with. So something to keep people moving forward. Because for me, I usually play for combat, so not just like glory and rankings, but the entertainment value of it. So having mobs that kind of give me that ability or something more in depth is what I'd like to see with people.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, I think that was a pretty comprehensive answer from both of you. Okay, so Zoe has a question. I will ask it for her. Zoe asks, regarding non-cargo loss on ship explosion, there's been a lot of confusion on how much of that is intended and what specifically is/isn't, like if things inside crafted containers are or are supposed to be safe. So I think the question is, can you elaborate on that?
I'm going to ask you to elaborate on that because that is just, I don't know either.
I think that ideally, if your ship is insured, everything should be being protected. But I know right now that that's not always the case, and I think that's something we can look into. Certainly, there are some things you can expect to lose, especially if your ship is not insured. Like, well, I'm sorry, it's all gone. But you know, having a very structured approach to that is a very good idea and something that we can look at and put on our priority queue. So I think that was Zoe's question, and I'm not sure if anybody has any more questions right now. Am I missing a question? If I've missed you or overlooked you, please just mention it in chat or in voice. Otherwise, if you have a question, go ahead and DM me. Oh, Flip has a question.
Yeah.
She has multiple questions. One second. Her question is, what is the coder's favorite Starmourn race?
Oh wow, that's a good one. I do not know. I have like when I started playing. I remember when I started playing, I looked through all the races, and I like how unique all of them are. Like I was legit having trouble picking which race I wanted to be as my test character at the time. So I don't really have a favorite. I like them all for different reasons.
Not bad
Sensei,
answer.
do you have a follow-up to that?
I don't know most of the races. I'm a bad
Okay.
person, I know.
Uh, well, I can tell
So the
you all
correct
that
choice was
Sayo's favorite.
Elgin. Elgin is the best race.
Okay, Flip says Elgin is the best race.
Bird people for life.
Quark says bird
Press
people.
X to out.
I can tell you that Sayo's favorite race is probably the Grensulian. But Sayo's not here right now. All right, so another real question from Flip. And this one is there any intention to add multiplayer functionality to larger ships, like one person on guns, one on shields, one on nav, etc.? That would be really cool.
That does sound like something I really want to look at some point because yeah, that does sound cool. Having actual crews man actual ships, I can see that being a thing, and I definitely do want to have that be looked at. I'm not sure if that's gonna happen tomorrow, as Yuke says, but yeah, I do think that's gonna happen at some point.
It would give a neat reason for people to install things like weapons bays and other things on their ships.
I
Right.
think that's an awesome, awesome idea. I would love to see that kind of functionality in the game. We don't currently have a design for that or any kind of roadmap on how to get there, but I personally am not opposed to that idea. It's just a matter of like, do we have the resources to make it happen in a timely manner?
Planning it out and putting it there.
Okay, so Loop Essentia has a question. She
Mhm.
asks, are there any plans to bring mobs back to Cosm Piercers or change the way Cosm Piercers work?
Haven't seen that on our list, so I'm gonna have to refer to you, Yuke, for that. Are there plans for that?
Not at the moment.
But I have heard the discussion asking for a little bit of that. I've also heard some feedback. So this isn't something we're planning. I'm just letting you guys know that I have heard this feedback on it. Also, that things like the cosmic piercers may seem too frequent. If people are getting max all the time, then it doesn't seem like there's a need to fight for the locations and things. So I think that will be something that overall will be looked at as part of conflict at some point. Just if people have thoughts on that, let us know.
Yeah, we're always interested in improving the game. It's just a matter of like allocating resources because we are a small team. Okay, so I think Zarek has a question. Zarek, would you like me to ask that for you, or would you like to ask it yourself? All right, 1 second. Zarek asks, has the influx of newbies caused from the 75 challenge resulted in any reassessing in the new tutorial plans, as well as any incidental reassessing in the faction blurbs? So we'll get to that one first, then he has a second question after that. I can kind of take this one. So the newbie tutorial, one of the things we would like to do, and it's on our spreadsheet of priority projects, is a way to make joining a faction a little bit more intuitive and roleplay centric. So we actually have content for a sort of, I guess, a quiz you take at character generation. You can skip it if you want to, at least that's the plan. To kind of like guide you towards the faction that best suits your character's personality. It's definitely like it's like I guess 70% done, but it needs to be put into the code. So that's the part that we're waiting on, and we will get to that when we have the resources for it. And that wouldn't really change the tutorial much, but it would change character generation, pretty significantly.
As for the tutorial itself, this isn't like codified in any sense of the word that I know of, but I have seen people discussing the tutorial and what they would like it to see, what they would like to see done to it. I've also seen people like trying to create their own tutorial that are more like class based, and tell people that have a particular class what they should be doing with that class. That does sound like a good idea, and I'd really like welcome seeing. I think there was a plan of making a tutorial for after the tutorial that people could opt into by players. I think that's a really cool idea. If it's ever going to be a game mechanic, I couldn't say at this point. Maybe when we have the resources. I think is a good middle of the road answer there.
Yeah, I think that changing the tutorial in like a wholesale way is probably not on the agenda. It works, it works. I would say, not to be biased or anything, but I think it is superior to pretty much every other IRE newbie intro. I think it's fantastic, and I'm not sure that we necessarily need to overhaul it at this time. But I'm all for more instructional stuff that newbies can opt into, because like keeping newbies sticking around is like what we need to do.
Although if you have some specific advice on how you think the tutorial needs improvement, like if we're not expanding enough in a certain place or something, feel free to let us know that.
Right.
Right, and if we're not doing it, like if we're saying that right now it's not on the agenda to overhaul the tutorial, that doesn't stop players from creating their content, obviously. And I've seen some really cool initiatives where that's concerned being offered already. So definitely go wild with that if that's what you want to do. If that's something you're interested in, go for it.
Yeah, by all means.
You have the official seal of approval.
Okay, so Zarek's second question is, can trigger for scoundrels get shoved higher in the skill tree because I deal with so many new Scatterhome scoundrels blowing themselves up and thinking this is how fighting works for I could not get through that without laughing.
I mean, it would be very simple to do. It's not my call, I'm afraid, but I don't see an issue with that necessarily.
Okay, so the discussion's been going for about 50 minutes now. I think in about 15 minutes, we'll look at wrapping up. So let's enter final question phase. This is just general questions about the game. It doesn't have to be directed towards the coders. It could just be anything that's on your mind. And at about 1:10 or so, we'll wrap things up and the recording and send you all on your way.
My name is Flip, and I have a question. Has anyone really been far, even as decided to use even go on to look more like?
I didn't understand that.
I missed that, I'm afraid. Sorry.
The classic question.
Flip is memeing and also now muted. Sorry, Flip.
I didn't even know what she said, to be honest.
Several people are typing.
All right, so Jaden has another question. What is the best way to contact coders? Idea, forums, issues, what?
That depends what you're contacting them for. So if you have just a general idea, like something brand new that isn't seen yet, that's probably an idea. Like that's literally you submit using an idea command. If you're, for instance, I asked for feedback on combat. If you're sending a log, email me. If you have a really quick question and I'm currently visible in Starmourn, send me a tell. I will periodically become visible in case people have something to specifically ask. I don't encourage sending messages on Discord just because that's opening a can of worms for me potentially. You don't know. I don't know what I'm necessarily doing at the time, and you wouldn't either. So if I have a whole bunch of people start sending me messages because someone just found something new, it's gonna kind of blow up my Discord, and I'll never get through it all. So it really depends how urgent it is and how much information. If you have a small essay to write for your question, that's still probably better as an email, just so that it's easier for us to review. But if there is a call for a question, like I asked, we bring up affliction, class lead afflictions recently. I posted those to forums so that when people comment, we have an easy record to go over so we can sort data out. So if you have a thing that's like a big topic that you'd like coder input on, if you happen to start a forum topic and message me, for instance, I will go check it out. I'm not saying I will come out and be like, give you all the information you want or make a change in that. For the most part, you can assume that unless something is a known bug, I will not make a change on request because I still need to get that approved. You can ask me to look at a bug, but if it's not my priority or if I have something else I have to do at the time, then I might not get to it. So, long answer short, it depends what you're asking.
Yeah, pretty comprehensive. Zersiax?
In my case, I'm generally on Discord, so that is the quickest way to get to me, especially if you send me a quick DM. You can absolutely do that, especially if you are in some way stuck or cannot move and there's literally no one else to help you out. You can absolutely DM me. Some players have done that, and I've rescued them or I've helped them out. If it's like obviously Starmourn coding is pretty much my day job, so if there is something that you want coder input on and you think I can help, it really depends on what you're comfy with. Like if I'm in the game and I'm visible, you can send me a tell. If I'm in the game I'm not, and if I'm not there, you can send me a message like an MSG, although it might take a while before I see those. So again, it really depends what you're asking. You can bug it, you can ID it if it's like a big idea that, hey, I wish it was this and this. I wish this and this would happen. And if something's flat out broken, just bug it. And I see those pretty quickly. Like generally, I check bugs every day, and I can see that if something's broken, I will usually, if I don't understand something, I'll usually follow up with you in tells, or I'll come find you in the game. Or if I really, really can't find you and I think it's super important, I might find you on Discord. But yeah, generally just figure out what you want to ask, and then depending on that, decide on a thing. I would say forum posts really only for things you need actual discussion on and a lot of people like chiming in. I think that's the easiest way to do that. But apart from that, I wouldn't say the forum is a very good way to reach me.
Okay, thank you. So I have a question from Aslan, and I will ask it. Actually, I think I have a couple questions from Aslan.
Okay.
Actually, Aslan's first question we kind of just covered, which was, is there a preferred way to give feedback? I think that was answered pretty thoroughly. Second question, is there any way that you can formally poll the player base to gauge interest on next projects or areas for development? Is there a better way that the community can influence what your priorities may be? For me, I would say, yes, we could definitely solicit your feedback more about game changes, and I think that we have actively begun to do that with Senzei's combat initiative, and just in general, just being a little more open to feedback and interfacing with the player base. We have a pretty clear to-do list of things that we would like to do. We could certainly like ask you what we should work on next occasionally, and maybe throw a poll up on the forums. I think some of the other games do that. If that's something you guys would be interested in, we could definitely look into doing that.
Yeah, that sounds about like right. I don't really have anything to add where that's concerned. Yeah, I think the forums would be a good place. I think we could look into doing a poll every so often, just check, hey, what's your biggest pain point right now, or what's your biggest like feature request right now, and then we can just see what data comes out of that, and decide to maybe move things up on the to-do list or add things that weren't there yet on the to-do list. I think that's like a good thing to do every so often. So yeah, if that's something you guys are gelling with, then absolutely, we can look into that.
I agree. I think I don't know how, if it's general code or game specific, but game wide referendums would be a good way, because that way you're not specifically having to check forum or specifically having to be in the Discord. It'd just be easier for people to reach in general. But even just populating that list of what people prioritize, if we don't have something specific already planned out, we would still need to get some of that feedback. So uh, for me, I usually find forums a little bit easier to do, because when I come on and check the Discord, there's 1,000 sub channels, and even just keeping up with the combat discussion, the PK channel is can be an undertaking if there's been a lot of discussion. So obviously, I don't read every channel. So if there's something that's not combat related, like you want to talk about, here's issues with ships. Like, I would love a forum topic where all you do is cover the issues of a specific category of thing. And if you happen to have bug numbers, great. If not, I'll end up checking for bug numbers. But um, those kinds of things are a good way to say, like, this is what we really need to focus on, because it's hard for us to know where your priorities lie, and what we think they are may not be true. Like, I assume class leads are important to the combat group because this is a change in skills and how combat functions. But is it better to have skills change or the afflictions change first, or would they actually rather have like 2v2 combat set up, or would they rather have this? Like, I don't know for certain unless they tell me. So being able to reach out to you guys is much better for us, and we're fairly active about looking for things, so always feel free to reach out, or post forum or whatnot. The more discussion you guys have and come to an agreement, the easier it is for us to be like, okay, well, if people are on board, great, that's something we can look at.
Okay, sounds good. I don't have anything to add to that, so let's move on. Lupus Sentia asks, this is more a side project for myself, and I know some people have partially worked on it, but a help file for crafting materials to show what the items look slash feel slash taste like in a quickly accessible way would be dope. Wondering if there are resources for this outside the wiki. I can. I unmuted you, Flip, but please be good. So let me answer that question quickly. No, the wiki is really pretty much the main source of information for lore information like that. Um, we're always interested in adding to the wiki, so if there's an entry that you think should be on the wiki, just please let us know, and we can probably add it really fast. We do have wiki moderators who work on the wiki occasionally. They're not quite as active as I would like them to be. So if you're a wiki moderator and you're not working, just maybe start.
Chop chop.
Otherwise, yeah, you can just go ahead and send me a message in game or send one of the storytellers a message in game. I believe they all have wiki editing privs, and we can certainly add whatever you want to see to the wiki, especially if it's something like a material or a food. That's fast. That's easy.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add there. That's not really in my domain, as it were.
What she said.
Okay, I think that I've worked through the question queue. We have about 7 minutes left in the session. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to ask? Now is the time.
Okay, I'd like to ask.
Go for it, Cork.
Are there any features that you've seen in other either IRE games or just in MUDs in general that you think would be awesome to bring into Starmourn?
Oh, all the time. Every game I play, I think about how could we make this happen in Starmourn. For one thing, I think Starmourn would be a really great vehicle for text-based Among Us.
I can see that. That'd be cool.
Yep, I think that's totally doable. I know Lucernia implemented a version of Mafia called Vengeance, so I would like to see it Among Us. That would be kind of funny, especially since we have the instant system we can use.
As far as other IRE games go, there's definitely a lot of systems that other IRE games have just by the virtue of them being like so established, like 20 years, 15 years of development versus our like 2 years of development. So we're stealing stuff from the other games all the time. Um, but it just takes a little bit of time to like sort of integrate it into our code.
Like a super small a super small thing that I've been asked about a couple times and has also been bugged a few times or ID'd a couple of times is the colored health bar from other IRE games on the prompt. That is definitely something I intend to steal from Lusternia or something at some point.
Yeah,
I
go ahead.
And for the, I was talking about liking to have team-based games. Lusternia has the ability to have up to like 6 teams with the number of people on each team that you specify. So that kind of meets my goals there. I'd like to steal at some point.
Great question.
I have a question, and it's a legitimate question. It's probably not me. We're still in beta, right? When are we not going to be in beta, or are we out of beta and I'm just not aware of anything?
We are still in beta. I have been discussing with my boss taking Starmourn out of beta because I think we have developed the game significantly enough that it feels, to me, it feels like a game that is more or less done. But I do need permission from the higher ups to go ahead and unflag us as beta status.
So I have a follow-up question on that because I honestly don't know. What does leaving beta status mean for us?
Probably means we would remove all of the beta graphics from the login screen and the website.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
All right, guys. I'm afraid I have to jet. So if there's like one more question for me particularly, ask it now because I'm about to go away.
Okay, Zersiax is about to go away. This is your last chance. Going once.
Going twice.
Jaden asks, "What's your favorite beer?"
Uh, you wouldn't know it.
Oof, cold.
Most beers that I really like are very regional beers. One you might know that I like is Grolsch, and that's a pretty like universal one. And then there is various other ones that I really enjoy, like Hertog Jan, which is a very Dutch one, and then there's Weizenstefana, which is a German one. So a lot to pick from there.
All right, well, thank you very much, Zersiax, for participating in this discussion. Uh, it was great talking to you and hearing your thoughts about the game, and I'm sure we will be talking later.
All right, I'm about to have dinner. Have a good day, everyone, and see you in game.
All right, see you later.
See you.
I think we have time for one more question, and if there's no more questions, then I will go ahead and wrap up the discussion. Does anybody have another question? Why? Sorry, Zarek asks, can experience chips be made faction-based instead of person-based? And my response was why. But as far as I know, like anybody can use them.
Faction trips, you said?
We're talking about like captaincy chips, just general experience chips.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we could double check it for sure. But as far as I know, like they're free to be handed out to whoever you want, and loyalty doesn't really play a part in their use.
I mean, is the goal of his question like so that orgs can award them or something and make sure they're not given to other people or something?
Maybe, I guess, yes. We can test it if it's buggy. I think that we don't intend it for it to be a feature that you can't give out to people if you want. I don't know about making the faction based though. We'd have to think about it. Oh, I see. No, that makes sense.
I don't know what you're reading from.
The chat, Zarek says, Scatterhome is trying to make noob packs, and I don't want my pile of chips poofing back out of the bag and into my hands. Well, I think that's definitely something we can fix without making the chips faction loyal.
That would just be turn off the reset flag, right? If you can use it when you're not
I
loyal.
don't think that they do reset. Like, that's the thing.
Are they artifacts?
Not really. They're just kind of items that you can use. They're consumable.
Okay. Because if they use the arty system, it might be default flagging them. Let me make one real quick.
Okay, well, that's something we can look into.
Yes.
And with that, we will conclude this discussion. Thank you so much, everybody, for participating. It was great to talk to you all. Thank you, Senzei, for taking a break from Cyberpunk to come and participate in this.
It's good to get away from the game once in a while. Not long, but once in a while.
Yeah, well, you better get back to it.
Yeah. Go from one sci-fi game to another.
Exactly.
Yeah, it I guess that's your brand. Okay, so we will go ahead. Steve, you can go ahead and stop the recording now.